I'm Mary.
And I'm Jenny.
Couldn't get enough of our podcast?
Well, all right. Here's one more bite. There's been a lot of baking and cooking going on with people to try and get their minds off of the COVID-19 pandemic. Why do you think this is? Are people using it as a coping mechanism?
I think that the pandemic, in short, and definitely oversimplifying here, but in short, it's really robbed us of our many of our go-to coping mechanisms, right? Some people can't go to the gym. Some people can't distract themselves in the identities of their work because they're no longer in an office. I mean, the majority of people, we can't go for brunch or for drinks with friends or whatever it may be. And so people are left having to get really creative with how they handle this and how they practice their self-care. And so I think for a lot of people, maybe they didn't know baking or cooking before the pandemic, but this has forced them to almost look at what they have within their own homes, within their own financial resources, ways that they can take care of not only themselves, but also their communities. The stories that I've heard about people dropping off food for homeless shelters, for long-term care staff, I feel like cooking has become almost like a connective tissue that's kept people together throughout this. Even think about the holidays over Christmas and Thanksgiving when perhaps we weren't able to see people in person, but we dropped off cookies. I think it's
that's the thing. Yeah. And I think, and I am agreeing. And I love what you're saying, everything about it, because even when you think about dropping off food to neighbors, or I think that what the pandemic has done, I mean, there's a lot of negative that comes along with the pandemic. We know this, but some of the I think shining moments of it, if I can say that, would be that I think it's kind of created more of a community within our neighborhoods, within our family, and just you're getting to know people that you never would have known other than because we're so busy.
100%.
We're always so busy running around.
You know, there's a saying in my family where we say that you take a temperature check every single day with your family at dinner. You literally do a temperature, temperature check to see how are the kids doing? How's my husband doing? How am I doing? What's the conversation like? Are people flat? Are people drained? But it really is that that breaking bread together and using it as a vehicle to lend itself to perhaps more deeper and meaningful conversations, to really allow people to be reminded that they are seen, they are heard, and that they matter. The way that I really understand it, it's connective tissue.
That's a great way to put it. Absolutely.
Do you think anything has to do with our senses with it? In terms of baking, for example? It triggers our senses of smell, our touch.
I think 1,000,000% all of those things, all of the sensory information that we get. The other thing, though, that I think is that it's a sense of accomplishment, right? Like, unless we really, really mess up, but even still, like that's not probably the norm. But at the end of the day, if you have, a fresh baked sourdough bread, or you have a nice vegetable soup, or a nice, you've accomplished something. And again, I think the most common theme that I've seen people suffering with in the pandemic is feeling totally out of control and not knowing when things are going to get better, not knowing what that's going to look like. So when you are actually able to create something for yourself and then enjoy it, you're literally empowering yourself with a sense of like, I can do things. I'm not hopeless. I can still create something in the hardest of seasons, in the darkest of seasons. I can still create something really beautiful.
That was mental health therapist Amy Deacon.
Pretty tasty stuff, right?
Didn't catch the whole conversation? You can find Brain Food on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite platform.
Don't forget to check us out on Instagram at Bits and Bites Show, or for more at bitsandbitesshow.com.